an advantage of staying at a place like the Hyatt Beaver Creek is they have a tremendous kids program. Like you can bring a toddler there and they have a kids program that they can keep your toddler occupied and happy while you ski all day. And you don't have to necessarily have that kid in ski lessons until they're really old enough to be in ski lessons. But then smaller properties aren't going to have all that, but they're also maybe not going to be as crowded to learn upon. The mountains that are really big, the big resorts, they can have big crowds, and that can be intimidating for anyone who's learning to ski. If there's a lot of people coming up behind you on the mountain, that can be kind of scary to me. And I guess another way to look at value is I actually looked at the Marriott Homes and Villas properties, because this is a map of Tahoe. You can see that from Reno Airport to South Lake Tahoe is an hour and 16 minutes. South Lake Tahoe is where Heavenly Ski Resort is. That's an epic resort. Up near Truckee, there's North Star, which is also an epic resort. But around this whole area, there's about 5 other ski resorts. It's a very beautiful area with lots of skiing, but very close to the airport. While there are many hotel options in this area, everywhere from Truckee, Incline Village, all around the lake, there are many different brand options.
Hey there, Points people. You just heard a clip from Mary Graves from Mary 3 Graves. Mary retired after 33 years in pharmaceutical sales. She's now an empty nester with a big bucket list, and her children make her fearless. They go on tons of adventures each year, and many of them into the mountains to go skiing. In this episode, Mary has prepared basically an entire masterclass for us on how to set up a ski vacation strategy around points and miles, complete with slides. If you're listening on your usual podcast platform, we'll describe what we're seeing for you. But if you would like to see the presentation and all of the visuals, we will have this episode and all future episodes featuring video for you on YouTube as well. If you're looking to do some ski trips, check out the Capital One Venture X. The Capital One points make it easy to erase purchases like ski passes, and many of the resorts we discussed today are Wyndham properties, which you can book using Capital One miles. Remember, if you decide to apply for the Venture X or any other card, never apply directly through Google. Always use a friend or creator's referral link. If you're interested in supporting this show when you apply for your next card, check out geobreezetravel.com/cards, and if you're not sure what card is right for you, I offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. And we have the links to the Venture X and the free consultation form for you in the show notes as well. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast, a show for anyone wanting to level up their travel hacking lifestyle. I'm your host, Julia Menez. I'm a travel hacker, coach, speaker, Filipino-American ENTJ who loves solid travel gear and using shortcuts on spreadsheets. On this show, I'm on a mission to bring you travel hackers from all walks of life to help you level up your travel hacking game. We dive into credit cards, miles, points, strategy, mindset, and the secrets behind how to travel the world for next to no cost. So, let's get hacking. We often talk about points devaluing, but what's more concerning is that inflation will devalue your monetary savings as well. That's why it's important to invest your money so that it grows with compound interest. If you're looking to get started with investing, check out SoFi to build confidence as an investor. Additionally, you can get a $100 bonus through Swagbucks when you make your first deposit with SoFi. All you need to do is sign up for Swagbucks by going to geobreezetravel.com/swagbucks. Click through Swagbucks to sign up for SoFi, deposit at least $50, and you will earn 10,000 Swagbucks valued at $100. Check out Swagbucks for even more easy money-making offers, and thank you to Swagbucks for partnering with this episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. Hey Mary, welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast.
Thanks, Julia. I'm very, very happy to be here. It's a pleasure.
I'm so excited to have you here as well. We're going to be talking about skiing and how people can do all sorts of different ski trips by using points and miles to save a lot of money, because I know the first time that I went skiing, it was really expensive. There were no points and miles involved, and I think that keeps a lot of people from even trying it at all. And it's very difficult the first time you do it. And if you're like, well, I just spent $100 a day falling down a hill, I don't know if I want to keep doing that. So hopefully by making it a little bit more accessible to people, it makes it easier for people to keep skiing so that they want to do it over and over again.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't start skiing until my mid-30s. So my 2 boys were 3 and 5 when we all started as a family skiing together out west. So I live in Alabama, and I have to take 2 flights to get anywhere. Where I live, there's no direct flights pretty much anywhere. With that being said, we've generally flown out west to ski because the skiing is better. But when we first started skiing, yeah, it's hard. It's hard if you're skiing with little kids, trying to get them to ski school. Learning as an adult, that was really, really hard. And it's very expensive to me. And I've learned over the years where and how to trim costs. Like I won't budge on safety. You know, when a new skier, new person comes out with us, we make sure they take a lesson first just to make sure they're okay to do this. There are places that you can trim down the cost, and there are a lot of little tips to make it easier, to make it more accessible, just like you said, to families and to all people that want to get into this hobby. It's a fun hobby, but it's nuanced. So
Absolutely. And speaking of fun hobbies, tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get into one, skiing, because there's not a lot of skiing out in Alabama. And then second, how did you get into the game of points and miles?
Okay, well, so my background, I started in pharmaceutical sales right out of college. So I spent 33 years doing pharmaceutical sales, and in that space, traveled a lot across the state of Alabama and later throughout the Southeast, but never to big cities. My overnights on territory involved a lot of Hilton hotels. Started in 88. I used my first Hilton redemption in 94, but we had enough points by that time to go to the Waikoloa Hilton for a week, which was huge for us because we were very poor 20 somethings. Just acquiring those points gradually. I wasn't smart about credit cards or any of that stuff. I didn't know anything about that. Over the years, flying, just acquiring the legacy miles, the legacy air carriers, their miles, and just doing little trips here and there. But starting in about 2018, I think that's when I started listening to some Miles and Points podcast. So there are many, and I only recently discovered you. I think I found you about a year ago. So far, I like you the best. But there's several out there. I will say what I like most about yours is that you're very clear, you're very instructional, which is very helpful to those of us that are new to the hobby. I feel like some of the other podcasts and blogs speak to an audience that's already there. And that's great for them. But for those of us on the outside trying for that lifestyle, it's a little bit frustrating to not understand, to hear it said real fast, but then no one explains it. So I really love how you handle content in your podcast and your master classes. But with the podcast, that just got me more interested, and I started coercing my husband into letting me get the credit cards. I had, great credit score and stuff. We've lived very frugally, so there was just no reason not to try this. But my husband is just so anti-credit cards. It's just he got burnt by American Airlines Citi card that I think he tried to use the companion pass last minute and had to pay like $150 last minute fee. And this was like 8 or 9 years ago. And so he's just negative that there could not be any good come of this. I've tried different credit cards. The only flop I've had with a credit card is with the Avios. I did an Avios credit card about 4 or 5 years ago through Chase, and they never sent me my companion pass. And I kept asking, and Chase didn't understand, and Avios didn't understand. And by the time I got an answer, it had basically expired, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. So a little bummed about that. Otherwise, I feel like every time I make a little mistake, I learn twice as much. So it's worth it. Like every step back takes me 2 steps forward at the end. So I'm okay with that.
That is a fantastic way to look at it because, like you mentioned, a lot of the content that already exists on the internet does cater to an audience who already knows the game. And when beginners come across that content, a lot of people are thinking, I can't find any availability in Emirates first class. I can't do any of this. How are other people going around the world with 120,000 points? And you learn over time that that is a gradual thing. That's generally not most people's first redemption experience. And a lot of people are hoarding points because they're like, I can't get a perfect redemption. So should I do any redemption? Yes, you make mistakes along the way, and then you learn from those mistakes. And in the meantime, you save $200, $500, $1,000. You don't have to save $20,000 right off the bat because there are tons of people who are just like, I want to save $500. I don't believe that you saved $500. So I think just putting that in perspective, like you mentioned, is so important too. I love that.
Yeah, it's taken me a while, but this past summer I was able to finagle my family of 14. So our extended family, mother, aunt, brother's family, sister's family, 14 of us. to Greece for a cruise. All the airfare was paid with various points and miles from different people's accounts, not all from mine, but I was the master puppeteer on that. It was a trip that we otherwise could never have taken. I was able to book the cruise. It was an Azamara cruise, but I booked it through United Cruises. I'm able to use whatever credit card I wanted. It didn't have to be a United card, but I got 7 United miles per dollar. And by the time that posted, it was almost 400,000 miles. It was huge. Again, I could have never done that 4 or 5 years ago, but over time you learn little things about Aeroplan or Avios, and you learn how to put it all together for a bigger family trip. I know that a lot of people ask for more content about that, about taking families. It can be done. You just have to be flexible.
So speaking of family trips, you guys do a lot of ski trips.
Yes.
How would you recommend that somebody just starting out with points and miles and looking to do some ski trips, maybe they're just getting started with skiing too, how would you recommend that they start out and approach that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll pull up the slides at this point because there's several different ways to look at how you want to pick your destination.
Yeah, that's a great point. We always say work backwards, pick your destination, figure out from there who flies there, what resorts are there, and it's exactly the same principles with skiing.
Yes, exactly. And so I feel like there's many factors that can affect your ski destination choice, but the 4 that I picked are kind of more relevant to points and miles. The first is ski pass driven, and in the United States, there are 2 major ski passes, the Epic and the Icon Pass. These ski passes, this first one, I'm going to address Epic first. So Epic has, if you buy the pass, and I will say that it usually has to be bought pre-ski season. So if someone's looking to ski this season of 22-23, you're not going to be able to get an Epic pass. You can probably get lift tickets, but this is a good time now to start planning for skiing next year. So skiing is one of those things that it's better if you can plan it out about a year in advance. So Epic Pass covers Vail, Beaver Creek, Breckenridge, Keystone, Park City, Utah, North Star, Heavenly. Those are Lake Tahoe properties. They've got several ski resorts in the Northeast, Vermont, and Maine, New Hampshire, and then of course through the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest. Today, I'm mainly going to speak to the properties in the Rockies in the West, just because those more align with the branded hotels that we're used to collecting points for. But this is more information on the Epic Pass. It also gets days, like right now I'm at Telluride, so I'm using my Epic Pass to ski at Telluride, which is not an Epic resort, but I get 7 days to ski here for free. So I'm using my pass for Telluride, but you could also ski in the Canadian Rockies, which a lot of people like to do. Whistler is part of the main pass, but the Fernie, Kicking Horse, those are all kind of just north of Glacier National Park across the Canada line. And then there's parks in Japan, Switzerland. You can use it in Australia, all over the world if you want. Just know that if you're using it in Australia, you're going to be skiing in the summertime, our summertime at least. So the pass will also, for Epic, will get you 20% off food, equipment rentals. This is an okay discount. I mention it later in the presentation that these Epic resorts are usually big, and bigger resorts usually mean that everything there costs more. So the 20% off just makes it the same as other resorts to me. If you want to start looking at a ski vacation, you probably want to start planning about a year out. So most of the major hotel programs will let you start planning about a year out or just less than a year out for your points.
Yeah, that's a great point. So a lot of the hotels, like you mentioned, Best Western will be 349 days out. You can start booking stuff. Radisson, 270. Hilton, 1 year out. World of Hyatt, 394 days out, which is about 13 months. ISG Rewards, 350 days out. Marriott will let you start booking 352 days out. And Accor will do 404 days out, which aligns really well with when you can get started with your Epic Pass.
True. And the same for the Icon Pass. The earlier you buy it, the better. Now, with that being said, these booking windows, I am not seeing the same availability for points bookings as I am for revenue bookings. It seems like the bigger or higher end rooms in some of the chains are not able to be booked on points. They have to be booked with cash. So just know that. I travel in Hilton a lot, and a lot of times I'll book a standard room and ask for the upgrade because I'm Diamond. and I'll get it, but it just depends. So I just want to put that out there that you may see a room and think, oh, this is great, I'll use my points. It may not be available. With Epic, look at Vail, because Vail is one of the biggest resorts in Epic, and there are a lot of properties at Vail. I know about maybe 6 months ago, you had a lady that spoke to staying on points at Lake Tahoe, and that was really a great deep dive into one specific area. This is going to be more like a 30,000 foot overview, just so that people can understand the breadth of the programs that are out there and how much they cover all different ranges of ski areas. So this property is the Hythe. It's a luxury collection resort at Vail. Most of these rates that I looked are comparing roughly the same week in February. I just picked the midweek, February of 2023. And in this room, a 2-queen room is $1,420 a night. So it's $4,260 for a 3-night stay, which is kind of expensive. It was 349,000 points a night for the Hyatt. So if you just have tons of Marriott points, you can definitely do this with points. But these high-end, St. Regis, the Hyatt, I think, is kind of a new brand. They're quite expensive with points, and you will still be just getting like a standard room with most of those programs. You will not be able to use the points larger suite type room, or some of the hotels, even though they're a hotel. If you go all the way up, they'll have some that are suites with kitchens and living rooms and stuff. At the other end of this market would be something like the Ramada by Wyndham Frisco. It's about 15 miles from Vail. It's actually very centrally located to go to Vail, Breckenridge, Keystone, Copper, Arapahoe. That's like 5. I did mention the Hyatt. To go back to the Hyatt, it's a very lovely hotel, but whether you book with points or revenue, you do have to pay $50 a day resort fee for use of their resort, which does include ski valet, which we love places with ski valets because it's usually ski in, ski out. They come and take your skis and your boots at the end of the ski day, and then they put your boots on these dryers overnight. So when you get them the next morning, they're warm and dry. They're not all wet and clammy from sitting in your hotel room all day. Especially when you're traveling with kids, this is a really big thing because everything that a kid skis in gets soaking wet by the end of the day. So a ski valet was included in that $50 resort fee at the Hyatt. As well, you also have to pay a $60 valet parking fee every night, regardless of your status with Marriott. So I would say that whenever you're looking at any big hotel stay, always call the hotel direct and find out if there are any fees that you don't already know about, because it can really add up for your stay.
For anybody who's like, wait, she said that we have to pay resort fees at the Hyatt. We didn't say Hyatt. It is the Hythe, which is a Marriott hotel in Vail, just to clarify, because I'm sure some people are like, I thought when you pay with points with Hyatt hotels that you don't have to pay resort fees anymore. That's true for anything like Park Hyatt Beaver Creek, which we can get into that later. But for the Hythe Hotel, Hythe, which is a Marriott resort, you do have to pay those resort fees.
Yes. It's hard to say that new name, Hyatt. Okay, at the other end of the spectrum, this is the Ramada by Wyndham Frisco. Again, I mentioned that Frisco is very centrally located to ski. The rooms here run about $300 a night. Because it's a Wyndham, any 1-bedroom room at a Wyndham is going to be 15,000 points per night. So this is a really reasonable redemption, especially when you consider that every room has free continental breakfast. It has the mini refrigerator, microwave, kitchenette kind of situation. I will say that, and this does absolutely pertain to smaller ski resorts, but even if you were saying someplace like here and driving up to Keystone's parking area is generally small enough that you could go back to your car and tailgate a lunch if you wanted to. That's always something to consider at the smaller resorts that have parking closer. The further the parking is from the resort, the harder it is to get back to your car for snacks or for a lunch, a noontime meal. But this is definitely not very expensive. It wouldn't take much if you had a bigger group going together to get a couple rooms together, and it's a new property. So I guess I want to make sure I highlight some of the cheaper properties too, because generally following the points and miles, it's just like everything. The flights, people only Instagram their business class travel. They don't show, economy, and they only show their redemptions at their high-end luxury properties. And there's a lot of everyday properties out there that will make the most of your points and still give you some money left over to pay for your ski passes and your rentals and all that. This kind of gives you an idea on the map. These are Hilton properties. So again, Avon and Vail. Avon right here, this is where like the Beaver Creek Hyatt is. But you can see that all these properties are clustered around the ski resorts. There's Beaver Creek here. Vail is huge, of course. Breckenridge is here. Keystone is here. Arapahoe is up here, and Copper Mountain is just over to the right about where it says Grays Peak. So there's also Homewood Suites that's brand new at Dillon that would be, cover Epic passes as well as Icon, because Copper is an Icon. That Homewood Suites, the rates are in the low 300s for the 1-bedroom suite type properties. So that would have a kitchen in it if you want to cook in. They each have the kitchenette ranging from 2 queen beds or 1 king bed with a sleeper sofa. But the book now rate for Hilton is $155,000 a night. I have found with booking properties through the years, especially with Hilton, because that's where the bulk of my points has been. If you book something about a year out or even about 6 months out, I booked DoubleTree in Park City for overflow spring break. My daughter's in college and some of her friends are coming at spring break, and we couldn't fit them all in our one space. So we booked Park City DoubleTree about 6 months ago, and I got double rooms there for 40,000 points a night. And so, and of course, with Hilton, you get the 5th night free. That was a very cheap redemption. If I look now, I'm sure it would be more than double that. So the earlier you book with points, the better for point hotels. So that's another property that's available in the Vail area that would be covered under the Epic Pass. Another popular pass is the Icon Pass. The Epic Pass, it has a scale on what their price will be depending on when you buy it. So we buy our Epic Pass usually in April. You have to pre-commit in April with usually a $79 fee. It used to be $49, then it went up. But by paying that pre-commitment in April, you lock in at the lowest price. This past year it was about $850 for an Epic Pass.
Per person?
Per person. So $850 per person gets you unlimited skiing at all of those Epic resorts, plus the 7 days at all of those affiliate resorts. If you have more than 4 days of skiing in a season, and in advance you're going to have more than 4 days, more than 4 single days at an Epic resort, it's cheaper to buy the season pass. That's a hard pill to swallow, but my daughter has a friend coming in January, and I just priced out 4 days. And even with our buddy pass, with the Epic Pass, you get special discounted tickets you can use for family and friends. Even with those buddy passes are $120 a day. Some of these ski resorts, especially like holiday or peak pricing, is going to run you about $200 a day for a lift ticket if you don't buy a pass in advance. Icon Pass, we bought our first one this past year. It's a little bit more expensive. We prepaid $1,079. I did notice later on that the Capital One shopping portal offered a discount for the Icon Pass in September. So that's something that I'm definitely going to keep my eyes open for next year. But we had already bought ours at that point. But the Icon covers Steamboat, Copper, both in Colorado. Palisades Tahoe is what used to be Squaw Valley, but it's basically Lake Tahoe area. June Mountain is near Southern California. Stratton, Vermont. Snowshoe, West Virginia. Blue Mountain, Ontario. Winter Park, Colorado. We're going there for the first time this year too. Eldora Mountain Resort, Colorado. I don't know where that is. Mammoth Mountain, California. Mammoth Mountain, Big Bear, and June Mountain are all near each other. And then Sugar Bush in Vermont, we've been there. It's nice. Tremblant, Quebec, a lot of nice properties up near Tremblant, like the Fairmont that's up there at Tremblant. So there's definitely some aspiration properties up that way. And then Solitude Mountain Resort is just south of Park City. We are about to go there next. When we leave tomorrow, we'll be driving that way. So I'll let you know how that is.
Eldora Mountain Resort is actually the only one of these I've ever been to. It's just really close to Boulder, Colorado when we lived there. And we had some friends who were like, oh, let's go skiing. And that was the day that I just tumbled down a mountain. And I was like, this is so expensive and every part of my body hurts. And I can't walk down any stairs in these ski boots. So this is a way to save on that.
Yeah, I can understand. Okay, so those are the unlimited access at 14 resorts, but then an additional 7 days at affiliate resorts. And these range from Taos, New Mexico, from Sun Valley, Idaho, Jackson Hole in Wyoming, a lot of options, and including Chamonix, Mont Blanc Valley in France. We were supposed to go there during the pandemic and we had to cancel our flights because of the pandemic, but that was going to be our first trip out there. So Icon, still more in Chile, Japan, Australia, Switzerland. Deer Valley is an Icon pass, so I'll be mentioning Deer Valley in this. So speaking of Deer Valley, the St. Regis Deer Valley is one of the premier properties. It's a Marriott property. I was looking at this same date in February that I priced out for all the other properties, and this was the nightly rate was $3,900, which is crazy. I could not get points prices for this property anytime this ski season. So if I looked early next ski season, early December, I found a deluxe guest room with 2 queens for 360,000 points per stay. That was just a 3-night stay. So all of these were 3 night stays. So that's not bad. That's like roughly 120,000 points per night. Just keep in mind, you will still pay for parking and resort fee. Aspiration properties have aspiration fees, but it's definitely, a bucket list kind of property. On the other end of that spectrum would be a Holiday Inn. This one is at Steamboat Springs, Colorado. So that again is an Icon property. And this is a 1 king bedroom, $450 a night, $456 a night, or between 73,000 and 90,000 points per night. It was just different points each of those nights, but the total points for 3 nights was 250,000. So, if you're looking at St. Regis in early December, which I will tell you the snow is kind of crappy in early December, but if you're looking at St. Regis, that was only about 100,000 points more than this Holiday Inn. Again, book early and you'll probably have more options. I did think that this one was neat though, because this king 1-bedroom suite mountain with trundle bed, this trundle bed looked pretty neat to me. It looked very clean. It kind of reminded me of a home to suites, but the idea of if you're traveling with kids that you roll out that trundle bed, it looked cooler and more comfortable than a sofa sleeper to me. That is another Icon resort. So that would be Steamboat Springs in Colorado. After that, there is the Mountain Collective. And the Mountain Collective is $599 for a pass. And this pass is different because it has 25 dream destinations, 2 days at each. So you can only ski 2 days on this pass. Then you get a third day at 50% off. But after that third day, you're just paying regular ticket window prices. But this has, some great places on it. Sun Valley, Idaho, very, very nice area. Lake Louise, Banff. There's, again, another beautiful aspirational Fairmont property up that way. Chamonix, Mont Blanc, that would be in France. So most of these are in the United States, but some of them are international. And here is an example of a property that would be at Jackson Hole. So as I've gotten through each of these passes, from my personal experience, Epic has the most options. You have the most options for hotel. Every single chain has something there. As I go down through each of these passes, I get more narrow and narrow. So I have found Hyatt, of course, is one of the first ones to drop off, then Marriott, then Hilton. But like Wyndham generally has something everywhere. Holiday Inn is pretty good, but you're looking at more downscale type lodging, not as fancy. But this is at Jackson Hole, and this is a Homewood Suites. So you could book it. The 1 king, 1-bedroom fireplace is $400 a night. And this would be for those 3 nights in mid-February. So middle of the week, nothing peak. That same room is 80,000 points per night. That's not a bad redemption on Hilton. That's not a bad redemption. That particular property, I've noticed with the Holiday Inn at Steamboat that I pointed out and the Wyndham property in Dillon, all 3 of those, the parking was about $10 to $15 a night. It's not anything expensive at all. And they did not have resort fees. That's a good option for Jackson Hole, Wyoming. This would not be ski in, ski out. But do keep in mind that most ski towns have ample public transportation. Obviously, people that work at ski resorts can't usually afford to live that close to them. So there's a lot of transportation options for getting from wherever your hotel is to the ski resort. I know that at Park City, Vail, Telluride, they all have free public transportations for the buses, the gondola, the trolleys. It's all free. You just have to learn the routes. And for that, nearly every system has an app that you can download before you go and just figure out which app you need for what system. So with that, the last pass I'll discuss is the Indy Pass. This pass is $349. It's still available to buy right now, as is the Mountain Collective Pass. That, like I said, the Epic Pass you can no longer buy. You might be able to buy an Icon Pass, but it's more expensive than it was. I think it's gone up to $1,300, but we again paid $1,079. But the Indy Pass is $349. It gives you access 2 days at 120 independent ski areas across the US, Japan, Canada, plus 25% off your third day. This 25% off your third day is pretty comparable to the 50% off your third day with the Mountain Collective Pass, because as I've gone down, the resorts are getting smaller and smaller. And generally that means cheaper and cheaper, but it also means harder to find lodging. So there's trade-offs. But if you want to do the Indy Pass, both the Mountain Collective and the Indy Pass, I think might be good add-on passes, or if you just want to try skiing for the first time, and maybe you want to take a shorter ski holiday, not necessarily a shorter vacation, but ski for less days. Since my kids have been skiing since they were very, very young, we always found it helpful to give them a few breaks during a ski trip so they wouldn't get burnt out on it, and spend a day either going bowling or going to a museum or ghost towns in the West, the railroad, the Rocky Mountain Railroad. There's just different things that you could do to not ski, so you don't have to use your lift tickets on those days, but you can see the area and do some fun things. A lot of natural hot springs to go to. That has been fun as well. But looking at an example of a resort or a points hotel that you could use at one of these independent resorts. This is Worldmark Big Bear Lake. It's a Wyndham property. Its rate was about $200 a night. Now, since this is a 2-bedroom condo, if you're familiar with the Wyndham pricing, they price 15,000 points per bedroom. This particular room would be 30,000 Wyndham points per night. You know, you can look for Vacasa. I've looked since last summer for Vacasa all winter, and I could not find anything. I found plenty of Vacasa properties, but I could not find any that would let me book with points. They all wanted cash. But Vacasa is always an option with Wyndham points. If you can find a 1-bedroom loft, that will generally count as a 1-bedroom, and you're only paying 15,000 points per night. But this is a nice property because it's a condo. You have, washer, dryer, kitchen, a lot of amenities. It makes traveling with a family easier.
I can't believe we've already recorded more than 100 podcast episodes. It feels like we just started yesterday, but we've already covered so many great points and miles strategies on this show and have many more to come. If you're new to this show or looking to level up your points game quickly, I offer a bunch of resources at geobreezetravel.com/start here. It includes links to free consults, free trials to some of my favorite points tools, and also links to services like group coaching, which start at only $5 per session through the Patreon. Again, that's geobreezetravel.com/start here, which I have linked for you in the show notes.
Let me speak to proximity to airport real quick. It's another factor for deciding on your ski destination. And so that will kind of be driven by what miles you have, if you're trying to use specific airline miles. I know that my son now lives in Cincinnati, and so that's a Delta hub. When we fly him to Salt Lake, I try to use Delta miles because even if I'm paying more miles, it's just a direct flight for him, and it's just so much easier. Denver is a great airport to get to. It just feels like everybody flies to Denver, including cheap airlines, Frontier and stuff. Proximity to airport is something to think about. Vail is at least 2 hours from the Denver airport, and you have to allow extra time, especially going back, because you go through the Eisenhower Tunnel, which is a beautiful, very long tunnel. But sometimes they have accidents and they close the tunnel. There's, avalanches and they close the tunnel. If they close the tunnel, it's terrible. I mean, there was one time that we got stuck on the wrong side of the tunnel. And when I looked for a workaround because of the mountains, literally we would have to drive like 120 miles in another direction just to get to the same place. So, Denver is a great airport to fly to, but just be aware that the closer you can be to the Denver airport when you ski, the better. If you're going to go as far as Vail or Steamboat, you might want to consider flying into either Vail Eagle Airport or Steamboat Hayden Airport in Western Colorado.
What are your airline options if you are looking to fly into one of those smaller airports? Because they do have some service, but not a lot. So who flies there?
Well, Reno is not that small, but we have flown Southwest into Reno many times to ski at Tahoe. So Reno is about an hour from Lake Tahoe. And around Lake Tahoe, there's 5 different ski resorts. You could fly Southwest or other carriers, but Southwest was always the cheapest for us. And we love flying Southwest when we ski because we now have our own equipment. And having 2 free check bags is pretty big when you're carrying skis and boots. We experimented with a velo this past year. We drove my daughter and her friend to Sacramento. I think it was Sacramento Airport. And they had to connect through Redding, California. But then from Redding, they flew to Vegas and then back to Birmingham. A velo was cheap. It took them all day. So I'm not going to do that to them again. I've paid more attention to Frontier because for my son in Cincinnati, there's a bunch of direct flights into Denver. So Frontier has got several sales going on right now, and I was able to get him a round trip ticket for about $109. Now he's going to have to pay extra for his snowboard bag, but we last year used the travel baggage shipper lugless. I know that there's a lot of ways to stack lugless on the American Airlines portal and Simply Miles and stuff, but we tried that last year. And for $50, we were able to ship his snowboard, and it traveled where it needed to go in like less than 2 days and was in great condition. So I'll definitely do that again. It will be cheaper to ship his board that way than it will be to pay it through Frontier.
If you wanted to go to Park City, or if you wanted to go to Beaver Creek, or if you wanted to go to Aspen, Steamboat, do those have their own specific airports, or are you generally just having to get a car? Can any of these be done without renting a car?
Yes, and even Denver can be done without renting a car because Epic has the Epic Mountain Shuttle. There's all kinds of mountain shuttles that you can get from the airport to your resort. You'll need to book it in advance, and it's generally cheaper if you book a round trip fare as opposed to 2 one-ways. So it's better to know kind of upfront what you're doing. And they're flexible. If your flight changes or something, you can just book a later shuttle back. But the mountain shuttle is a great idea. Of course, I mentioned that once you get to a resort, there's plenty of free city and resort transportation. So the shuttles are an idea. Speaking to the airports themselves, we have flown into Steamboat Hayden, and it's great. It's generally an American Airlines not hub, but those are your flights there. Then we have flown into Eagle Vale, Vale Eagle, and there's a couple there. Montrose, Colorado is a smaller airport, and it's about an hour and 20 minutes north of Telluride. So we have flown there on United. And it's kind of fun because, especially not last minute, I guess either way far in advance or kind of last minute, you get some really cheap fares. I mean, I got tickets for us on United last year, round trip to Montrose for $20,000 each, which was pretty good for United. And again, it's a small airport, so parking was like $8 a day. It's crazy because we left our truck there and flew home and then flew back and picked up our truck. Those were a couple options. As far as Salt Lake City, Salt Lake is a huge airport, and they just recently redid it. So if you fly into Salt Lake, wear comfortable walking shoes because you will walk about 3 miles to get out of that building. But it is only a 45-minute drive from that airport to Park City. This past year and this year, we brought our truck out west. But prior to that, we have always just flown to Salt Lake, Ubered over to Park City, and then just walked or taken public transportation. We've never rented a car in Park City. There was never a reason to. So that's a very easy airport to fly into. Delta, of course, has a lot of flights, but a lot of people fly into Salt Lake. And then once you fly in there, you can just Uber to your resort. And that doesn't have to be Park City. That could be Deer Valley, Solitude, Alta, Brighton. Those are all right there. So after that, for proximity to airport, one of the other considerations is brand of your points. Which brand do you have the most points in? So you had mentioned Park Hyatt Beaver Creek. We have had hot chocolate here before, but we've never stayed here before. It is beautiful from the outside. It is a very high service resort. Everyone I know that has stayed there has loved it. It is definitely a great place to stay. I was looking at that same week in February, so about the 21st to the 24th, a standard king or a standard double range from $681 to $776 a night.
So the Park Hyatt Beaver Creek, that's like a category 7. I think it goes for about 30,000 points per night, which is not bad given that this is about $700, $800 per night. And if you can get it during the holiday season, like Christmas or New Year, it's going to be more than $1,000 for sure to stay at that hotel if you can find the availability. That is a really good and popular redemption for people who are Hyatt fans and also really into skiing.
Yeah, and I will say Beaver Creek is a beautiful ski resort. The terrain is very family friendly. There's, I'm sure, very challenging parts to it, but there's a lot of wide open park type areas that are just fun for kids to be able to ski through trees and over little hills and jumps without being in harm's way. It's just a very fun place for kids to be. And it's a nice little village around it too. So now I'm going to switch to overall price and value, because going back to hotel brand driven, you know, we've highlighted several different properties at different resort areas. So once you kind of know how to search within your hotel brand, all you have to know is where you want to search. So I kind of just wanted to give some ideas of what some of the resorts were out there, so that you can kind of narrow it down. This particular property, the Microtel Inn and Suites at Georgetown Lake, this is near a ski resort that is not affiliated with any of those passes. However, we've skied there a couple of times because A, it's very inexpensive. It's very close to the Denver airport. This particular hotel and resort are on the eastern side of the Eisenhower Tunnel. So if something happens to the tunnel, you're on the okay side for the airport. But this little Microtel, it's new. It opened at the end of last winter. So it's been open about a year, but their rates are about $200 a night. And being that it's a Wyndham, that would be a 15,000 point redemption. They do have a couple of rooms that the suites, I couldn't find the suites available for points in February, but I could when I searched next December. So that might just be a early bird gets the worm situation. But this little hotel, you know, it has breakfast included. There's also a restaurant that's just across the parking lot from the hotel that was a really good restaurant. Property itself is on a little lake that's backs up to the mountain. So our room was on the back side of the hotel, looking over the lake onto the mountains. And you could see mountain sheep there through our window. It's crazy. It was very wildernessy, but very close to Loveland. I think it took us like less than 10 minutes to drive from the hotel to Loveland Ski Resort. And Loveland was one of those places where, you know, ski passes were only about $50 a day. So pretty reasonable. Value can come from using points, of course, in any of these properties. That you get a tremendous amount of value, particularly when things are included with that price. Like at the Hyatts, you don't have all those extra fees. It's great when breakfast is included for your status, but also you have to consider value for like how much other things are going to cost, like your ski rentals, your ski passes. An advantage of staying at a place like the Hyatt Beaver Creek is they have a tremendous kids program. Like you can bring a toddler there and they have a kids program that they can keep your toddler occupied and happy while you ski all day. And you don't have to necessarily have that kid in ski lessons until they're really old enough to be in ski lessons. But then smaller properties aren't going to have all that, but they're also maybe not going to be as crowded to learn upon. The mountains that are really big, the big resorts, they can have big crowds, and that can be intimidating for anyone who's learning to ski. If there's a lot of people coming up behind you on the mountain, that can be kind of scary to me. And I guess another way to look at value is I actually looked at the Marriott Homes and Villas properties, because this is a map of Tahoe. You can see that from Reno Airport to South Lake Tahoe is an hour and 16 minutes. South Lake Tahoe is where Heavenly Ski Resort is. That's an epic resort. Up near Truckee, there's North Star, which is also an epic resort. But around this whole area, there's about 5 other ski resorts. It's a very beautiful area with lots of skiing, but very close to the airport. While there are many hotel options in this area, everywhere from Truckee, Incline Village, all around the lake. There are many different brand options. One of them that I liked recently was the Hilton Vacation Homes and Villas. You can see this is, again, a map of Lake Tahoe, but this is just with Marriott Homes and Villa properties on it. Now, these can vary widely for their price and their value. So you really have to look at each one individually, like you would for Airbnb or VRBO. And many of these properties are also listed on VRBO and Airbnb. So if you do this, I really recommend doing like a triple search just to compare base cost and their fees, because VRBO and Airbnb have different fee structure than Marriott Homes and Villas. And also, I have found that Marriott Homes and Villas, even if they price out just slightly higher, because I'm usually getting an Amex offer stacked on it, or they're offering anywhere from 2 to 4 times Marriott points for the dollar stayed, and you can stack that on a Marriott portal or whatever. I usually find that it's a better value for us to go through the Marriott portal, but I always check on the other VRBO and Airbnb. But for like this one, looking at that Ski Dock Holiday there on the top left, and it says from 105 per night. That's for 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 6 guests. It always ends up being more when you price it for the week you want or for the 3 days. So I was looking at checking in the 20th to the 23rd, again, just 3 nights. So that priced out about $400 a night. You can use points and cash, or just points or just cash. Again, you get your Marriott points based on your spend. Like right now they're offering 2 times points, but we've used Marriott Homes and Villas when they've offered up to 4 times points, and that's pretty significant. And again, there's great value at being able to spread out a little bit. Having a washer and dryer is huge. When you just, like I said, with kids, everything they ski in gets wet, 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 wet. Definitely get everybody wool socks, because cotton socks will never dry the whole time you're there. Having a little bit more room to spread out. If someone's working remote, they can have their own room to go, be on the computer in. Having a kitchen it makes it much more economical to cook in when you can.
You mentioned that it gets more expensive when you try to do 7 days instead of 3. Is that just because the weekends are more expensive than midweek?
Yes. Yeah. And I was actually also trying to make this all comparable, roughly 3 days, because this close in to, like, we're in ski season right now. So I couldn't find a week of point availability in most of the places that I've already showed in the presentation. I couldn't find a full week. So I just kind of went for 3 days midweek in February, knowing that it's still snow. It's not as peak as weekends would be. And it wasn't on like a President's Day or Martin Luther King Day weekend. The only other tips I would say is I mentioned buying the season passes as early as you can, preseason if you can. Book points hotels up to 350 days in advance. Book them as early as you can, and then just check back often for changes in rates. We have actually done timeshare presentations to get either free lodging, free ski tickets, or free meals. So it's just something you can try if you want. I see Wyndham offers in my email all the time for Destin, Myrtle Beach, and someplace else, maybe Gatlinburg. But we have done 2 timeshare presentations at the Wyndham properties in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Now, this is not a property you could get to without a rental car. I think Durango is the nearest airport to Pagosa Springs, but Pagosa Springs is a nice little area. It's very inexpensive. The property there, the Wyndham property, has lots of different condominium type complexes within it, and they're all on a little lake, very pretty. But you're in a historic hot springs town. And so if you go into downtown Pagosa Springs, there's all these different hot springs that you can do. Some are inside, some are outside. It's very neat. And they are really nice mineral hot springs that you do feel much better sitting in after skiing. And then the ski resort that's nearest there is Wolf Creek. So it's an independent resort, very small. It's about a 30-minute drive from Pagosa Springs, but it's great skiing. It actually has the highest amount of snowfall in the state of Colorado every year. It averages about 500 inches per year. And we ended up extending our vacation this past season into the first week of April because there was still so much snow there. And we went down there. We had the free lodging because of the timeshare presentation. Some timeshare presentations, I know with Hilton, you don't get free lodging, but you can get either free lift tickets or gift cards for free meals. But, I would just say if you're interested in doing something like that, call their, 800 timeshare number. Each Marriott, everyone has a main switchboard for timeshares, and ask them if they have any offers, because once you do it once, you'll get more offers. It just is, it does take up to 2 hours depending on who your salesperson is. And, I will say with the Wyndham presentation, the first one we sat through, it was unbelievable the stuff they said. It was just, and I was in sales for 33 years, so I can understand that eagerness of wanting to get the sale, but they were saying stuff that were just outright lies. I kept, trying to check them on it. They're like, oh, no, this is really how it is. And for our stay, they told us that we would get a week at any Wyndham property in the U.S. And they showed us a map of all the Wyndham properties. And Wyndham has some great properties. And it turned out it was nothing like that. And they also mentioned that if you went ahead and applied for the Wyndham Earner credit card while you were there in the presentation, you would never have an annual fee. And I was like, that really sounds too good to be true. So we didn't do that. But I did call about the credit card. And they're like, no, they can't promise that. Wyndham doesn't dictate the annual fee, the bank does. So it was kind of funny, but as long as you go into any timeshare presentation with your wits about you and don't get suckered in, you should be fine. But it is a way to save money. The other thing is that if you're planning now for next year and you have an idea of which resort or area you want to go ahead and start following their social media feeds, because you will find out about any problems they're having. Last year, Epic Resorts, particularly in Park City, where we were a lot, Park City and Stevens Pass up in Washington State, they had terrible problems, big time. Like we would not have gone to Park City, especially for as long as we did, if we had had any idea that it was going to be the experience that we went through. So follow social media feeds to see for problems, but also sometimes you'll see special days or special discounts that they do that aren't advertised on their website, but you'll find out, like last night here in Telluride was a night called Noel Night. It's always like the first week of December. And every place downtown, our dinner was 50% off. All the stores were like 25% off to 50% off. Everyone was giving free wine, and just it was a very fun, festive atmosphere. But we didn't know our dinner was going to be 50% off until we got the bill, and we were just like, wow, that just saved us like $90. It was a big deal. Definitely will keep that in mind next year when coming here. Social media can just alert you to discounts or problems that a resort might offer or experience. But other than that, those are the big tips for, how to start the search with points and miles, and how to start there and then backtrack back to where you are earning your points or transferring your points to the appropriate hotels to get your stay booked.
Yeah, that's a fantastic tip about following the social media accounts, because I do that with Southwest and JetBlue and a lot of the airlines, because sometimes you find out about sales there first. Speaking of social media, can you give a shout out to a couple accounts that you love following for points and miles tips as well?
Yeah, so I won't say any of the ones that have been repeated on your show, and there's a lot, and there are some really good ones, and I'd love to throw some more, love their way, but I'll just mention one that Laura Diaz has a podcast called Eco Chic. It's more of a environmentally friendly podcast, but she does have several episodes throughout the 5 years she's been podcasting that address travel in different areas. I kind of like to always have some cognizance of what my carbon footprint is, when I travel. I love the travel, and I love the earth that I'm traveling on, so I want it to be here. And it's really, particularly when you ski and you notice snow and snow melt, you really start to pay attention to stuff like that. So Laura Diaz does a really good balanced review. It's not all gloom and doom, but she does offer a lot of solutions for minimizing your, environmental impact, both when you travel, but also at home. So I want to shout out to her.
I love that. I also think that it's not mentioned enough in the points world that the way that people used to earn their points and miles was to just fly back and forth a lot, sometimes needlessly. And now there's so many ways to do that from your couch with a credit card. It's easier for you. You probably spend less money, spend less time, and it's better for the world. So I don't think that's ever been shouted out on the podcast of just how much it helps maybe the planet for people who still want to earn points but don't want to be flying all the time. So that's a great thing as well. And where can we find you on the internet?
I have a small website, Connecting Green Dots. It does focus more on environmental issues, but I'm on Instagram, Mary Three Graves. Follow me because we do travel a lot. We're retired, and I'm retired, and my husband has his own company, so he works remotely everywhere. But we just got back from Scandinavia and turned right around and drove out west. So we just go, which is great because, we couldn't go as much during the pandemic. So it's nice to be able to do it now. But that's where I am.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Mary, so much for coming on to the podcast. These slides are fantastic. All of your tips are fantastic about how people can save money on ski trips using points and miles, and just lots of different tips, since it can be sometimes a prohibitively expensive vacation for families, but this is going to be so helpful for people for saving money. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and coming on to the show.
Thanks. You're welcome, Julia. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. If any of the cards mentioned in today's episode piqued your interest, please check out the links in the show notes for more information on any of the cards. Also, if you apply for a card using the links on that page, I may receive a commission too, so please and thank you. P.S. I hear the links work better in Internet Explorer or Safari, and sometimes the credit card applications tend to glitch out in Chrome. Additionally, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to this podcast, leave a 5-star review, and share it with a friend. And if you would like to make even more travel hacking friends, please sign up for the Patreon to access our monthly masterclass hangouts. We dive deep into a particular points program each month, and you'll get to ask all of your travel hacking questions and enjoy being around other people who enjoy points and miles just as much as you and I do. If you would like an invite to the next one, head over to geobreezetravel.com/hangouts to sign up to be on the invite list. Take care and happy travels!